Good afternoon, and thank you for joining today's PartsSource Executive Webinar. We'll wait just one more minute before we begin. Thank you for joining our webinar today. We are very excited to have Mike Busdicker from Intermountain join us for our PartsSource Executive Webinar. So today's webinar is brought to you by PartsSource. PartsSource partners with healthcare organizations to raise the availability and quality of patient care. PartsSource is the world's largest provider of medical replacement products and technology. Just a few housekeeping items. If you have any technical difficulty during this webinar, please take a look at the control panel that's on your screen and you can chat with us and we'll troubleshoot for you. In addition, as Mike is providing his presentation and you have questions, feel free to tap the Q&A button on your control panel and submit a question. We'll take all questions at the end of the presentation. In addition, after today's presentation, we will provide an on-demand replay in case you missed anything or want to share it with others. So now I'd like to introduce Mike Busdicker. Mike is the Clinical Engineering System Director at Intermountain Healthcare. He started his career with the United States Air Force and served as a biomedical technician, first sergeant, and human resource advisor, completed an operational deployment to Iraq, and achieved the highest enlisted rank of Chief Master Sergeant during his tenure. Prior to Intermountain, Mike held leadership positions with Service Master Management Services, Aramark Clinical Technology Services, TriMedics Healthcare Services, and Alexian Brothers Healthcare System. Mike is an active member of many organizations, and he's a member of the AMI Technology Management Council. So Mike, now I'd like to hand it over to you.
Great, thank you very much. I really appreciate PartsSource putting on the webinar and inviting me to participate and present. And I'd like to thank everybody that's on the phone and on the WebEx, or on the presentation as well. I really appreciate it. And basically, we're just going to cover a few things, and we'll talk a little bit about Intermountain Healthcare and what we've done here at the organization. I've been with Intermountain 7 years now. I started in May of 2011. And I'll talk a little bit about an evaluation of our organization or our department, the findings of the HTM department, what we did to pitch the leadership for systemization and standardization of our department, what are 7 key steps to our successes and where we stand today within the organization or within the facility as far as HTM goes. So with that, we'll move on and again, just provide an initial scope, program coverage, what we do with the HTM department at Intermountain Healthcare. What we did at System Leadership, we did a presentation with organizational leadership at the executive level to talk about our department and how we fit within the mission and vision of the organization. And then I'll cover 7 steps that we used and that you could use if you'd like to, any of the information that's out there to elevate your department within your facilities as well, whether it's a healthcare system or an individual standalone facility. So a little bit about Intermountain Healthcare. We are an integrated delivery network, and we are based out of Salt Lake City, Utah. We are the second largest employer in the state of Utah, only second to the state itself. We have, it says 39,000 employees. We're probably a little under that now with some reorganization or restructuring that we've done over the past year. We have 23 hospitals in the system. We actually just opened our newest hospital in Layton, Utah last Monday. We did break ground on another hospital in Spanish Fork, Utah that's projected to be done in 2020. We started in 1975. The healthcare system actually belonged to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and they gifted the hospitals to the community in 1975. We're a little over 2,800 licensed beds now. We have our own health plan, Select Health. We have, it says 900,000 there, but we're pushing about 1 million members in our health plan. And we have a medical group that started in 1994. We have 185 plus clinics throughout the entire state. On our continuum of care, we are in 9 Western states now with our telehealth and virtual care. We do have a central lab, central pharmacy. We also have life flight operations. We have 7 helicopters, fixed wing aircraft, and a jet that's used in the donor program. Actually, our helicopters, we're the only life flight program in the nation that's certified for extractions in the mountains, you know, with a lot of the stuff that we do here out in Utah. Intelair is actually our GPO. It was started in 1986. In 2015, Intermountain Healthcare bought ARI, which owned a portion of Amerinet, and Intermountain acquired that portion of Amerinet, and they also owned a portion of it already, and the name of Amerinet changed to Intelair. So that is our GPO. So one of the first things that we did was we went out and took a look at our HTM department, and we looked at where are operational variations that we have. And we've got a number of staff. We've got about 125 FTEs across the system, and we were divided into different regions at the time. So we had a north region, a central region, a south region, southwest region, and we took a look at, they were operating independently within their own silos. Reporting structures were different across the system. Some were reporting to IT, some to facilities, some to operations. We had department managers and clinical staff that were managing service contracts and service expense. So if clinical engineering or HTM wasn't handling the service on the equipment, it was being handled by the local departments within the hospitals. So they were managing those contracts, calling in the service events, maintaining field service reports if they had to. So we had a lot of department managers that were taking care of that type of service. We had different levels of expertise across the system. Some of our departments had parts inventory, some didn't. We had scope of work and service line responsibilities were different. Some areas we were handling nurse call and beds and sterilizers, and some of our facilities we were not handling that type of service, and we really had an inefficient management of capital equipment. So no standardization across the system. We had 8,700 unique manufacturer model numbers across our system. And that's we've got about 100,000 pieces of equipment that we manage across the organization as well. So on the systemization and standardization, one of the things we did is we went to organizational leadership and we said, here is the importance of clinical engineering or HTM across the entire system. The importance in patient care. We have converted over to Cerner for our EMR, and we called it, that's in our iCentra project, and we looked at the connectivity of medical equipment to iCentry and the data flow and information that goes across. So we really wanted to inform senior leadership what our process and what our involvement in that process was and how important clinical engineering is, as well as access to equipment, make sure our equipment was up, and how that ties into patient satisfaction as well. If patients are coming in and exams are having to be rescheduled because equipment is down, that impacts patient satisfaction. And then we looked at our trending and historical analysis as well. Where were we at with equipment as involved in patient care, and what was impacting patient care from a trending and historical perspective? And then the compliance, quality, and security. So we, again, as a system for our HTM department, because we were operating in silos, we had different policies, procedures. Our medical equipment management plan, I'll tell you, we had on our management plans, we had some that were 2 pages long, some that were 15 pages long out in our site. So we said we could standardize that with a template that everything looks the same, standardize our policies and procedures across the system, as well as workflows to gain efficiency and reduce cost. And then data and device security, network protection, again, wasn't real high on the radar for the HTM department. And that's something that we worked with our IT department, our CIO, and we ensured that our senior leadership was aware that HTM is extremely involved in that process when it comes to medical equipment. And then the financial impact. We looked at the expense and we showed that how over time that expense has been climbing each and every year because of the growth of the system and the growth of the equipment, as well as the non-standardized practices. And we rolled in the capital planning and technology lifecycle management from a system perspective instead of just at the local facility level. And then commercialization. We looked at future revenue streams. Is there an opportunity for our department as we get our own in-house program and our own facilities in line? Is there an opportunity for us to expand outside of our own system and generate revenue? So again, we talked Intermountain leadership, and we said the Intermountain mission is helping people live the healthiest lives possible. One of the things that I talked to the departments about when we first started, we said, do we have mission statements for clinical engineering across the system, which we did. And one of the things that we did was we said, take those mission statements, pull them out of those frames, crumple them up and throw them in the garbage. We don't need individual mission statements for our clinical engineering departments. Our mission statement should be identical to the organizations, and that's helping people live the healthiest lives possible. And then how do we integrate with that mission statement? How do we ensure that our staff understand what our participation is and how we contribute to meeting that mission? So we looked at what is the strategy or team scope for our department, and we said that's to optimize medical equipment maintenance and management strategies to assure clinical quality, patient safety, and best cost value proposition from an organizational perspective. And some of the high-level objectives in order to get there is to create best practice in-house service program. And I know it says in-house service program, but I will say it is a collaborative, cooperative program with identified suppliers. We're never going to get away completely from service contracts and reliance upon our suppliers in specific areas or some areas. So it is a best practice in-house, but a collaborative effort with identified suppliers. So, and we want to integrate our clinical engineering department across the entire system and into the departments within the hospitals, whether they're clinical or non-clinical departments. And creation of quality service metrics. We're not going to report on numbers just to report on numbers. Those quality service metrics are things that are impacting patient care and treatment. And then the total asset management process. And, you know, I used to say from cradle to grave, but our sustainability officer says we should change that to from cradle to grave to cradle, because in today's world with equipment, as we start to cycle it out of our facilities, not all of it goes to salvage. We want to make sure that we're providing cost savings opportunities. We have an active role in that capital equipment spend, and we standardize service delivery across the organization. Our staff and clinical staff and non-clinical staff that are out in the facility shouldn't have to They shouldn't have to think about, well, who does beds here, who does sterilizer, who does this. We need to standardize that service delivery across the system. And if we're not doing it, we still take that call and make sure it gets to the right place, as well as direct management of our authorized service providers. We don't need our staff, our clinical staff, managing service providers, managing calls, managing field service reports, worrying about, is it under full service, is it time and materials, what parts are they going to put in. That's our area of expertise, and we need to let them do what they do best, and that is taking care of patients. And then we need to manage those authorized service providers, their performance, hold them accountable, and ensure that they understand they are part of our team in providing patient care and treatment. Some of our accomplishments that we presented to senior leadership from 2012 to 2016. Under the Imaging Equipment Service Program, when I started at Intermountain Healthcare 7 years ago, we were 100% outsourced on our imaging equipment. So we took a look at, we centralized the entire budget process, the parts procurement. We established a centralized service call dispatching. We call it our Service Coordination Center. We have an inventory manager. We stock X-ray tubes. We stock high usage parts. We partnered with our major suppliers to roll into master service agreements. And I can say that after 4 years of that program, from 2012 to 2016, we reduced contracts and we provided $4.5 million to the bottom line in savings. We no longer, all calls come into our Service Coordination Center, whether it's full service, time and materials, first look. Our service coordinators are able to pull that information up in front of them, take a look and see what level of, is there coverage on this, what level of coverage is there, who do they need to dispatch to. They dispatch to our service providers, and they dispatch to our in-house personnel. We actually, from that time, 2012 to 16, we now have 17, and I think we added a couple last year. So, but to current date, we have 17 imaging service engineers on board now at Intermountain Healthcare. Our clinical engineering support services, again, we went out and we did a complete parts inventory, and we took all of those non-critical parts that were being stocked at our local CE departments and moved them all to a centralized parts area, as well as, you know, we utilize the supply chain courier system, and I can have parts out to any one of my sites within 2 hours of them requesting. So we took some of the more expensive parts, like patient monitoring power supplies, and we had 8 of them in the system. We combined that, stocked them centrally. We now have 2 that are stocked on the shelf, and I can have them out to the departments within 2 hours. We also created a centralized recall and equipment hazard alert process. So we have a centralized recall coordinator, and he does the search of the databases, works with ECRI, works with all of the other facilities to get recalls out, he establishes recall work orders, tracks them through to completion, as well as we have created a central depot for mobile medical device repairs. Our expectation is that any mobile medical equipment, such as compression therapy pumps, infusion pumps, we do portable ultrasound systems here, a number of mobile medical equipment that we do in our central depot. If it's going to take over a half an hour to repair at the site, then they box it up into totes and they send it to our depot for repair. We have realized over $250,000 a year in savings through that process. And then our program quality, again, we've standardized our CE policies, procedures, all of our regulatory items, our templates for our medical equipment management plan, as well as our annual review. We have system level meetings, and we have CE representation on all system level committees. So our impact on helping people live the healthiest lives possible, the organization created dimensions of care. And, you know, around those dimensions of care, what we did on the clinical engineering or the HTM side was to say, what is our part in that? So you can see on clinical excellence, it's ensuring that we have great technology, service excellence, maybe making sure that it's available when it's needed, all the way down to physician engagement and community stewardship, so that we know that physicians have the tools that they need and that efficiency drives opportunity, and we can reduce cost within our facility and organization, which in the end is going to benefit our communities that we serve. So being integrated in that service delivery is really vital to our core mission. Just an example here of some of the things that we do. You know, Intermountain Healthcare, on their operational effectiveness, one of the things that they say is that we seek better care and better health at the lowest sustainable cost. So they say excellent healthcare is of little use if patients can't afford it. At Intermountain, we want to keep our rates as low as possible while still allowing us to continue to serve. And you can see here that the focus under this piece of the operational effectiveness is to continually improve quality, encourage wellness, and operate efficiently. So if you look at this piece of it, what we did is we went into each one of these areas on the dimensions of care for the operational, this is just an example on the operational effectiveness, and we said, what is our contribution from the HTM perspective on this dimension of care that the organization has identified? So this would be our input on that. So we look at it and said, okay, we can seek better quality and better service at the lowest sustainable cost. So how do we do that in the HTM department? So through continually improved quality, we look at it and we say higher quality tends to cost less because equipment usually experiences fewer failures, repeat repairs, or other issues. So we focus on the right service in the right setting at the right time, and that drives down our cost. Encouraging wellness, again, we're looking proactively at our medical equipment instead of reactively and saying, how can we keep this equipment as healthy as possible, and what can we do in order to encourage wellness of our equipment, as well as we look at the operators as efficiently as possible, and we want to make sure that we're driving down cost or we're impacting cost, but we're maintaining or improving quality of that service as well. So we look at collaborative agreements, innovative solutions, and this is where we bring our suppliers into the picture as well to help us with this and say, we are on the same team here, and as long as we're on the same team and create win-wins, we're going to create a win for healthcare as a whole. So that's how on our HTM department, we feed into those dimensions of care. And we make sure that our staff understands. So we continually educate our frontline staff on this process, so that if somebody comes up to them and says, how does clinical engineering or how does HTM contribute to the organization's mission, vision, and dimensions of care, our frontline staff knows that. Again, the dimensions of care that I talked about, the clinical excellence, service excellence, operational, you can see those here. And what we did is we put bullets together on those and said, here is our contribution to those dimensions of care. And again, this is where we ensure that our frontline staff on the HTM, in the HTM departments or CE, understand what those contributions are, as well as we share this with our suppliers, so that they know what we're doing and what our expectations are in contributing to those dimensions of care. We did want to tell them what won't change. As we look at the integration, the systemization, and being part of the entire process for the organization, what will not change? Of course, we're going to retain and hire the best people. We're going to make sure, you know, one of the first things that concerns that was there was they said, well, you're going to be pulling people out of my facilities that have been here for years supporting us. And we said, no, we're not going to do that. They're still going to be part of the local operations. They're still going to support those facilities yet. We're going to use the Intermountain systems. We partner extremely well with the supply chain organization. in the space requirements that we have, our parts inventory, because it's all involved in that inventory process, the courier system, as well as best practice sharing across the entire organization. In the past, because the CE or HTM departments were operating independently in silos, they weren't sharing those best practices across the entire system. And we're going to leverage internal relationships, make sure equipment's available, and we're going to work with our stakeholders, our users and our equipment owners. They're the ones that are with that equipment day in and day out, and we're going to make sure that we work with them in order to enhance our workflows, processes, and equipment use and trending and availability. So the 7 key steps that we identified within the organization, the first step in that process, again, is to communicate value, internal and external. So when, from the frontline perspective for our HTM technicians, we want to make sure that they understand what the organization's mission and vision and values are. And we want to make sure that they know how they are contributing to that mission, vision, and values. And again, I would say that if your department has its own mission and vision, why? Why do they have it? Why isn't it identical and the same to what the organization's mission and vision are? And again, ensuring that our frontline staff, they understand what those contributions are. And from the leadership perspective for HTM leaders, be seen at more than just committee meetings. Round with purpose. And rounding with purpose, anybody that has any familiarity with the Studer group understands the rounding with purpose. It's not just being out on the floor, walking through and saying how things are going. Be out there with the staff, round with them, understand what they're going through, document what their issues and concerns are, and follow up. Make sure we're following up with them through completion, and we're at least letting them know that we're thinking about them and we're taking their input very seriously, as well as our business reviews that we do with our stakeholders. So if we have service contracts with an organization that does a quarterly business review, which we require of all of them, when we're doing those quarterly business reviews, we do them in conjunction with our suppliers. So we'll sit down with an organization that's doing a quarterly business review. They'll present their data and information, and then we'll present ours, or vice versa. We'll do ours first, and then we let them do theirs. So we're presenting our data in that quarterly business review right along with our suppliers. And then do daily or routine team huddles. We really are involved in the huddle process here at Intermountain Healthcare. We have huddle boards. All of our clinical engineering departments have huddle boards that are updated daily or every other day. We do daily huddles with our frontline staff. We cover a safety minute. Our safety minutes don't have to be HTM related. We cover quick wins, good catches, caregiver recognition. Our huddle process is 15 minutes. And we cover things, and I'll show you a huddle board a little bit later in the presentation as well. We'll talk a little bit more about the huddles. The second thing is revisit your department metrics and aim higher. Again, if you're reporting metrics just to report, if you're reporting numbers just to report numbers, to me, it's a waste of time. We shouldn't report just to report. What value are they? Now, there are some in safety committee meetings, whatever, that we have to provide, like PM compliance numbers. There's no reason for us to, for me anyways, from my personal opinion, there's no reason for us to sit in a safety committee meeting and show or demonstrate or talk about PM compliance numbers if they're within regulatory standards. Send that out as a pre-read. There's no reason to have that information unless there's something in there that's an actionable item. There's no reason to cover it. So again, the metrics that we should be tracking, the things that we should be looking at, the things we should be reporting to organizational leadership are things that generate action items and show improvement. So as well as, can you tie them to the organization's mission and vision? And the contributions that they make to that mission and vision. Think outside the box. You know, we're looking at information now. We're starting to track, and we're really taking a look at equipment failures and downtime that impact patient care and treatment. And we're looking at it from a system perspective. We're trending and tracking that, saying, is there anything we can do to impact that number, to drive that downtime or increase the equipment uptime, which we think ties to patient satisfaction. As well as, again, I can't emphasize enough, and you'll see a lot of it, the daily or routine team huddles. We track significant downtime. We set a standard and a goal. If we've got a piece of equipment that's down for over 84 hours, we do a root cause analysis. And now we're just doing that on our imaging equipment right now. We're not doing it on the general medical equipment, but anything that impacts patient care and treatment and it's down for more than 84 hours, we're doing an RCA. And we're asking the question in that RCA, why? Why did it go down? Why was it down for so long? Why did it take so long to get the part? Why? Just asking those why questions that generate, again, those action items that allow us to track performance and document success where we implement workflows that impact that. Technology management, again, the complete asset life cycle. We're talking from start to finish. You know, does your department have a place at the table during the evaluation process of equipment? Do you have a role, or do you have a vote or significant input in the selection process? Are our HTM personnel involved in the process? Do they understand the clinical application of the equipment? We have frontline staff. It's not always leaders or supervisors. We will put frontline staff on those evaluation committees because they're the ones that are out there working with that equipment as well. Let them be involved in the process. They have the skills and knowledge to be able to do it. And then you need to consider all aspects. Look at the networking, integration, cybersecurity, and then track and communicate value. What are our cost savings, cost avoidance? So hard dollars, soft dollars. And then any safety and quality measures that may be established in that technology management or complete asset lifecycle process. The next step in the process, number 4, would be predict and prevent. Again, we have in the HTM industry or in the field, I've been in this field for over 35 years, and for a number of years, we have always been reactive. Rarely have we been proactive in the process. So do we look at remote monitoring? Do we track our equipment performance? Looking at our on-hand parts inventory for quick turns. Working together as one team with our suppliers. Again, let them be part of the process. Bring them into the table and be upfront with them and tell them, here are our goals, here's our objectives, we want you to be part of this process. So if we can be proactive in the process, you as a supplier, what can you do to help us be proactive in that process? And then again, be sure the department is flexible. And you know, we've got technicians and personnel that work after hours or prior to scheduled hours to ensure that PMs are done on equipment that's not interrupting patient flow. We may stagger shifts in certain areas. We want to make sure, one of the things that Intermountain Healthcare took a look at from a healthcare perspective was they were saying at a lot of our clinics were closing for an hour at lunchtime, and then they closed at 5 o'clock in the evening. And we were basing our scheduling and our information on what we wanted, not what our patients wanted. And we took a look at that at Intermountain, and they decided they're going to stagger shifts at the clinics so that we were open during lunch hours, as well as our clinics started to stay open until 9 p.m. at night. And then we found that 60% of our clinic appointments after that were scheduled during those hours that we weren't open previously. So we started looking at what do our patients want, not what's best for us. And I think from an HTM perspective, we need to do the same thing. We need to look at not what's best for our department and what's best for us, what's best for our stakeholders, and in the end, what's best for our patients. And again, those daily and routine team huddles, some of the other things that we talk about, idea boards. What are some new ideas? If ideas are generated, what are we doing with them? Are they in progress? Are they complete? Do they add value? We have an expectation within our HTM departments that our frontline staff will generate at least 3 ideas per year that we'll take a look at, and then we'll determine, are we going to implement those ideas? Are we going to run them across the system? Part of their performance evaluation is to generate these ideas. And then we set standards and expectations. We follow up, make sure we're following up on every one of them. The last thing you want to do is tell people to generate ideas and then you never follow up with them on those ideas and let them know where they're at, as well as recognize them for those implemented ideas, things that increase efficiency, that standardized workflows or our cost reduction items. Make sure that we are recognizing them for those ideas. Fifth step in the process is raise your hand and take the tough assignments. You know, I was in the military for a number of years, and we were always told in the military, never volunteer for anything. But from an HTM perspective within our facilities, the way to be involved at the organizational level is to be part of the organizational solutions and those projects. Rely on your expertise and knowledge for problem solving. In the HTM field, we're known for problem solving, and we can utilize that type of expertise, not just in medical equipment, but any type of project that the organization is running. Look at the resources within the department, use them, and just be willing to get outside of your comfort zone, be willing to learn and possibly fail. The only way sometimes that we learn and we get better is through that failure process. And really keep the staff and leadership informed, so document, understand what the process is, know what the desired outcome is, how you're going to get there. We want to make sure that it meets the expectations of the organization. Set milestones along the way. If it's a project that's going to take a period of time, make sure we're setting milestones, hitting those milestones, and again, we're communicating that to organizational leadership. And ensure that we're recognizing everybody that contributes to those projects as well. Stay current on issues. And when I say stay current on the issues, I'm talking about our HTM issues, but probably more important, healthcare issues. Do the HTM leaders within your organization, within your facilities, or do you as an HTM leader, do you understand the challenges in healthcare? And ensure that we're sharing these challenges with our frontline staff. Do they understand what their part is? Look at the capabilities of the department. Take ideas to organizational leadership. Don't wait for them to come to you to say, we need you to do this. Go to them and say, I have an idea here that I think would provide a potential solution, or at least a partial solution to an issue that we're facing in the healthcare industry. And be involved. You've seen that I'm involved. I'm an active member in AMI. I'm an active member in the American College of Healthcare Executives, National Health Information Sharing, the American Society of the Clinical Engineering Association. I'm involved with the local chapter of the Utah Healthcare Executives. I'm involved with HIMSS. I'm involved with the local chapter of the Utah HIMSS chapter. And I attend their seminars, their meetings as much as I can. I'm involved on a couple of their committees at the local organization, and that's where I can keep up on some of the issues that are going on and some of the things that they're looking at from a healthcare perspective nationally. And then continue to learn and promote learning. I'm a firm believer in higher education. I think as an industry, when it comes to HTM, that's something that we have not pushed and promoted in the past. I can tell you that my CE directors positions that we have in the organization require an undergraduate degree. Any type of position right now, the people that I have in positions that have system level responsibility have master's degrees. But as people go through that process, make sure we're recognizing them for those individual accomplishments and learning achievements. Again, collaborative relationships, make sure we're using our suppliers more than vendors. And some may say, what's the difference between a supplier and a vendor? And I learned that, again, from a mentor that I had on the supply chain side that I talked a lot to. And, you know, when we first started talking about it, he said there is a definite difference between the two. A vendor is somebody no different than a person that sells popcorn and hot dogs at ball games. They exist on a transactional basis only, where our suppliers are very collaborative with us, and they work with us to try and reach those same goals. Don't get me wrong, we need vendors, and we have some, but our preference is to work more with suppliers than our vendors. We weed our vendors out and ensure that we are collaborating with our suppliers in making sure that we get the best practices or best solutions possible. Again, our HTM service personnel, same team, same goal. So we have seamless handoffs between our in-house service personnel and our external service, our authorized service providers, as well as both remote and on-site. So if we have remote support going on with a supplier and it requires an in-house engineer to be on-site, our outside suppliers will work with us to potentially get an in-house person there on site because their service personnel may be tied up or they can't fix it remotely and we have a first look anyways. So we're really working together, same team, same goal. And when I talk about that, we actually brought our imaging service engineers together annually with our authorized service providers, their engineers. We brought them together in the same room. And I can tell you the first time we did it, we had service providers on one side of the room and in-house personnel on the other side of the room, and they did not talk or intermingle. Now, when we do this, they are all together, intermingled, intertwined, they work together, they know each other, they understand each other, and they're really, they've really bought off on same team, same goal. And again, each organization, to me, you know, we talk about different things with third-party service providers, manufacturers, independent service organizations, in-house programs. There is a place in the industry for every one of them. But what we've got to do is we have to create win-win relationships so that we create a win for healthcare because it's all about the patient. And I think as an industry, as we've looked at protecting our turf over the past few years, the patient is the one that's paid in the end. And we've got to stop that, especially as healthcare continues to progress forward. So where do we stand today? Here at Intermountain Healthcare, I can tell you it's definitely not in the basement. That picture that you see there on that slide is the view from my office window. And it's not a framed picture hanging on the wall. It's actually, I look out the window and that's what I see. Of course, not all of our departments are that way. Some are still in the basement. They're in the literal basement, but they're not in the basement because they've been elevated in the organization, and we've got executive leaders within our facilities that are turning to our CE directors, our CE supervisors, and our staff to say, we've got an issue, can you help us with this? And it's not all just medical equipment issues that they're talking about. So we've definitely come out of the basement and have elevated our department within the organization. Our structuring, so here is kind of our support, the way that CE or HTM looks at Intermountain Healthcare right now. Again, our central support services with the system director, we have a security and compliance central support director, which includes home care, our service coordinators. You can see there in our hospital operations, we have 3 area directors. We have our imaging equipment service program with a director. And then we have our central depot repair services as well. The dots on the map there are our hospitals throughout the geographic area. You can see we've got 1 actually up in Burley, Idaho. The rest are located along the I-15 corridor of Utah. Our clinical engineering program, again, area-based engineers. We've got a dedicated parts buyer in the supply chain that's dedicated strictly to clinical engineering. We have our business analysts that pull our data and information together, centralized parts with X-ray tubes. We do quarterly meetings with all of our stakeholders and our organizational leaders. going to kind of run through some of these here because I want to make sure we've got time for questions. This is our organizational structure. Again, you can see our 3 area CE directors on the right, our central CE, and then our imaging program. That's kind of our org structure. This is our integration. Some of the things that we focused on with integration, capital planning, our meetings, supply chain. We have a guidance council with oversight operations, an imaging services guidance council, information systems, and then our parts procurement piece. Again, shared accountability. We take a look at what we're doing here. You know, here we're looking at our risk analysis, our savings, end user feedback, vendor performance, all flows down into program documentation. We have a leadership review, and we're seeing success, and we set new milestones, goals, objectives, and again, we're reviewing every 3 months and adjusting as needed. Transparency, again, department and system huddles, our action register, our RCA process that we have for extended downtime, KPIs, metrics, and dashboards, things that we're tracking that actually improve performance and are not just numbers to report as numbers. This is our huddle board in our central office. You can see we've got our dimensions of care with safety, quality, patient experience, access, stewardship, and our engaged caregivers. We do track, so we're taking a look at the safety side. We look at any trending and analysis, any ICS cert information that comes out, major projects. We put our goals up there, what our goal is and how we're tracking. We do utilize different colors on there, so you can be able, you can walk into the huddle, you can walk into our office, look at the huddle board, and anything in red is areas that we may not be hitting, and the green areas are areas that are tracking within the metrics that we're looking at. We look at days to document, average age of open work orders, number of work orders that are coming in on the imaging side, how many may have been escalated to our service providers, tracked time. You can see our idea board on the right-hand side with our recognition as well. And again, every one of our clinical engineering or HTM departments out at our hospitals have one of these huddle boards. Metrics and benchmarking, again, we just, you know, program implementation, we track that. We look at our regulatory compliance, our service coordination center, work order metrics, completion, open. We do time studies, our escalation calls, why they're being escalated, some cost of service ratios, in-source, outsource. And we always are looking at our contract evaluation and justifications. Are we getting what we're saying we're paying for in our contracts? With that, I kind of ran through those last few slides, but I wanted to make sure, it looks like we got about 12 minutes or so. I want to make sure we had some opportunity for questions.
Mike, thank you so much for the presentation and the very specific things that Intermountain has done to elevate clinical engineering. So we do have some questions, and as we're going through these, if anybody has additional questions, if you go to your control panel and hit the Q&A, you can type in what you would like for Mike to answer. So we have a few questions here. Jennifer asks, what is the breakdown of the HTM staff? How many support staff, imaging staff, biomed staff, etc.?
Certainly. So we have, again, we have about 125 FTEs across the system. As you can see, we've got, from our central perspective, so we have 3 service coordinators, 1 parts inventory, 2 business analysts. I have a service contract specialist. And then from and I don't want to say it's a medical equipment security positions. We have a manager and 2 frontline staff that handle all of our cybersecurity, networking and integration, remote access and support, standardization when it comes to any type of that device integration that we've got. And then we have 17 imaging engineers, and we've kind of divided them up. So we've got some CT specialists, nuke med, ultrasound, general rad, and we're looking to move into the cardiovascular and MRI areas now. So we'll be adding staff there. We do have a number of general biomed staff across the system that are some are specialized in anesthesia. We do have a dialysis team that handles all of our dialysis throughout the system. That's a staff of 4. And then right now we have a sterilization team that does sterilizers. And then we have 9 people that are actually assigned in our home health. 4 of them in our mobile equipment for home health, and then 5 of them that do our power chairs and wheelchairs and things like that.
Thank you, Mike. We had a few questions come in. Is it possible to receive a copy of this presentation? Yes, absolutely. Everybody who is on the call will receive a link to Mike's presentation in the next few business days, so stay tuned to receive that. And also Mike's contact information, if you'd like to follow up with him, is on the screen. So his email is provided here. Another question that came in looks like an org chart question. To whom do you report, Mike? What is the org structure at Intermountain? Where do you report into?
So I used to report into the vice president of the supply chain, but recently we've just added a position at Intermountain Healthcare called he is the assistant vice president for the environment of care. And under him is the HTM department, facilities, plant engineering is under him, environmental services, safety and security, emergency management, waste stream, and did I think I said sustainability is under him as well. So that's where I report to. It's kind of similar to, so his position is kind of over the organizations that have a lot to do with the Joint Commission, regulatory, and the management plans.
Great, thank you. So we have another question from Frank. Have you found a benchmark or standard with respect to equipment inventory counts to technician staffing ratios?
That's a great question, because we utilize, right now, Intermountain Healthcare is utilizing Truven for staffing best practices, and we're looking at the number of, the number of hours per 100 devices is what they're looking at. Now, it's not a good, to me, it's not a good benchmark because there's too many variables and variation in there. I can tell you that one of the things that we're doing as a community, I know Amy used to have their benchmarking piece, and they've kind of pulled that back a little bit right now. So there's a group of us that have got together, a transformation group, that are looking at different benchmark and metrics that we think would be beneficial to the industry. So organizations like myself, Sisters of St. Mary, Mayo, Advocate Health, and Christiana, and some others that are on this group that are taking a look at some different things that we think we can assist Amy with as we move this forward. So right now, we did take a look at, from the metrics perspective, we did look at devices per technician, and we did break that down from general biomed. We only broke it into 2 areas, general biomed and imaging, to see where we were at. And there's a lot of variation across the systems, ranging anywhere from 2,000 per tech to some of them were down, I think there were 900 or 1,000 per tech. So there was a lot of variation in there right now. But I suspect we'll get better at that as we continue to move along looking at it.
So another good question here. How did you build trust among senior leadership for them to listen? In other words, what was your strategy to communicate the need for them to consider clinical engineering to be a vital part of healthcare in general?
So the first step in the process was to actually take a look at where we stood, and that was the initial findings, and then taking a look at from that perspective, then saying, you know what can we do right now to improve upon those workflows and processes, and then implement those and put those in place. And then we went to organizational leadership and we said, here's what we've already done, and here's the contributions that's made to the organization's mission and vision, and here's what clinical engineering, here's what HTM is involved in right now that has a significant impact on that mission and vision. And here's what we believe, here are the steps and things that we can do to impact that and help us accomplish that, help the organization accomplish the mission and vision. So it's more than, for us, it was, we took a look at it and said it's more than just our own department. What we need to convince organizational leadership on is how we can be part of the issues that are facing healthcare and our individual organization. How can we be part of the solution? How can we be proactive instead of reactive in driving that, in getting them on board with that? And it took a little while, but we had to continually stay in front of that and ensure that they were getting that data and information on how our department was impacting those areas.
Okay, thank you. Which CMMS do you use, Mike?
We use PeopleSoft.
Okay. And another question, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we are one of the few healthcare systems in the country that are using it. We've been using it for 4 years. We had some real struggles with it to begin with. We made some significant progress with it, but I think part of that is the 2 business analysts that we've got here that are able to pull data and information and generate queries and put together reports for us.
Great, thank you. And are your technicians union or non-union?
Non-union.
Okay. Okay. Are there other resources out there for clinical engineering leadership and other healthcare executives to come together in this manner?
So I think that, you know, some of the organizations, one of the things that I've been pushing for, and I think we missed it this year, but I think we're going to try and get on the agenda, or at least be able to present. You know, I've attended the American College of Healthcare Executives, their Congress that they have every year in Chicago. And I can tell you that every one of those Congress that I've attended, there has been nothing that has covered HTM and what we can do for the organizations or for healthcare. There's been no presentations at all at that Congress. And, you know, the ability to present at that Congress, because that's American College of Healthcare, that's your CIOs, COOs, CEOs, CFOs, all your C-suite personnel. A number of them attend that seminar. And I think that, you know, our opportunity to be there and to show them what HTM can do for their organizations is a great opportunity for us. We just got to be able to get on their agenda and do it. And then I think a great start for HTM leaders is to become involved in those organizations from the local chapters. American College of Healthcare Executives has a local chapter, I believe, in every state throughout the country. And that's, again, the Utah Healthcare Executives. I'm involved with that organization, and it's up to me to be involved in their committees and to say, let me present at one of these conferences that we're going to have. Let me present the information on HTM and what we do and what we can do, as well as our local chapter of HIMSS. We do the same thing there. Get our biomed or our HTM societies involved in those organizations locally first, and then I think we can go at it from the national level as well.
So Mike, we have time for one more question, and 2 people submitted the same question, so we'll answer that and then wrap it up. What is the level of interaction that your HTM department has with IT? Wondering what is the frequency with which you meet?
So our CE Medical Equipment Security Manager meets with our IT Cybersecurity Department every week. Every Friday they meet. So we have a very, very collaborative relationship with our IT department. So I meet on a regular basis with the Chief Information Security Officer. Again, I meet at least once a month, sometimes every other week. We get together and talk about issues that are going on. I don't meet with the CIO. I meet with this individual, and then that information flows up to the CIO with that. And again, our cybersecurity department meets on a regular and routine basis. Again, we meet weekly with them, so we've got a great relationship.
Unfortunately, we are at our time, but if we haven't answered your questions live, we will follow up with you. In addition, everybody on the call will receive a copy of today's presentation, and we thank so much, Mike, for your time today. Such an insightful presentation and really, really helpful. Also, just want to send a reminder that our next PartsSource Executive webinar will be on Wednesday, November 14th from 2 to 3 o'clock Eastern, and Glenn Schneider from Cincinnati Children's will be presenting Planning for the Future, using Lean to address CE inefficiencies and interns to address CE labor shortage. Again, thank you all for your time, and Mike, thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. Have a great day.